Hi there, I'm Andrew McComb and welcome to Outlier. In this week's episode, I'm in beautiful Manly, Australia, where I'm going to be speaking to Dale Beaumont, Australia's premier business coach and creator of Business Blueprint. Okay guys, I'm excited. I've spent a lot of time learning from Dale in the past and I'm really looking forward to sharing it with you. Let's go and meet him. Dale, welcome to Outlier.
Thanks so much.
You're one of Australia's premier business coaches. You've got a fantastic business blueprint program. How'd you get into business?
How to get into business? Well, I had a lot of energy as a kid and I grew up in a family business, and so I was always kind of on weekends helping my dad out, driving around in his truck. He was a decorator, so he'd put up decorations for weddings and during Christmas time, during football season and things like that. So I was always watching my dad sort of like, do his thing, and helped him with sending out invoices and things like that. So it was kind of in the blood. Got a part-time job when I was 15, and I also had a career in sport, which I can talk a little bit about later. But when I finished school, I lasted about 5 months, I think, in the workforce. I just thought that everything was moving sort of too slow, and I just sort of got the idea that if you are going to be successful, you probably had to, at some point, start your own business. And so I decided to take the leap when I just turned 19. It's almost been 20 years now and haven't looked back.
So what was your first foray into business? Was it business coaching related or was it something else?
Yeah, it was something else. So what had happened was when I was 17, I started to go along to personal development courses. I started with a guy called Michael Rowland, and then basically any guru that came to town, I would rock up and attend their events. So whether it was Tony Robbins or Robert Kiyosaki or Brandon Bayes or Zig Ziglar, Jim Rohn, I'd just go to all of their events and I was like a sponge, just taking it all in. And what would happen is I'd sort of look around the audience, and they seemed like the average age was about 50. And I had a lot of people come up to me in the breaks saying, "Wow, you're so young, you're so lucky. Like, what are you doing here? Are you lost?" I said, "No, I'm here to learn." And they said, "Wow, if only I had all this information when I was your age, I wonder where I'd be today." And that kind of got me thinking, like, why isn't this stuff around personal and professional development, why isn't it taught like at school? We spend so much time on subjects, like maths and science. Obviously they have their place, but you think about how much of it do you actually use in the real world? Probably less than 5%. So the other 95% is wasted. But it's these life skills that you have forever, which aren't really focused on enough in schools. And so, we thought about whether or not we try to go to the Board of Education and get them to change the curriculum, and we realized that was going to take 20 years. So it's just like, okay, if it's to be, it's up to me. And so I started it with a business partner, a guy I went to school with, called Brent, and we started running this weekend program for teenagers, taking all the best content that was out there in the personal or professional development field and making it fun and relevant and exciting and interesting for young people. And so we had like a DJ there, had a smoke machine, we'd play loud music, we'd watch movie clips, but then we'd have some content that we put throughout the day, and it was just amazing. And that business is still running almost 20 years later.
Really?
Still going. We've had about 40,000 young people now go through our course that we created called Empower You. And so that was my first business, and it came from wanting to inspire young people and to give them access to the tools that were going to equip them for success in life.
What inspired you to get into personal development before you obviously started inspiring others with it?
Yeah, it's kind of, it's a happy and sad story. The happy part of it is that I was always ambitious, and I had a lot of energy kind of as a kid. So I always wanted to try hard and be the best, and I wanted to win, and I was competitive, and so there was definitely that sense of wanting to try and get ahead and wanting to try and make something of myself and become successful. But the other sad part of that story is when I was 17 years of age, my younger brother, who was 15, he passed away, and in very unexpected and tragic circumstances, and that really sent me into this massive tailspin around that I felt really responsible for what had happened, because up until then my whole life had been around Dale. I was training, I was an elite gymnast, and so I was training 36 hours a week in the gym, and my whole kind of family was around getting Dale from point A to point B, and I felt really just devastated by what had happened. And so I had this big kind of hole in my heart that I kind of wanted to try and kind of heal up in some way. And so when I went along to these courses, not only did I learn about how to become successful, which was the positive side, but I also learned about how to deal with the baggage that I had taken on board because of this tragedy. And I learned to, through the process, kind of forgive myself and realize that what had happened was completely unexpected. There was no way of me knowing what was going to happen, and I could not have done things differently. I was on a path and he was on a path, and so therefore I just had to continue my life. And I was either going to use this as my excuse to say, this is the reason why I'm going to turn to drugs, or this is the reason why I'm going to leave home, and this is the reason why my life is just going to go in a downward spiral. Or I can say it's happened, it's very sad, and it's going to be with me for the rest of my life, but I can put that in a place in my mind where I'll always remember all the good times, but I'm going to continue on my path and my purpose in life. So that's kind of one of the reasons what drew me to personal development. And I felt like why I was inspired to create the programs for young people is I felt that I had been able to deal with as best I could this tragedy, and I wanted to be able to give that message to other young people that yes, it's important to set goals and to make the most of your life and to live life to the fullest. But you also need to understand how to manage your emotions, how to deal with challenges and obstacles, how to overcome adversity. Many of the kids that we had worked with had parents, 50% of marriages end in divorce, and so many of the kids that we were working with felt had a lot of issues around divorce of parents. Others had experimented with drugs, and there was and some of it even contemplated suicide as well. Yeah. So I wanted to be able to give them kind of hope and sort of say that this stuff is going to happen to you in life. It's a part of life, but it's not what happens to you. It's about how you choose to respond to what happens to you. That's going to decide your future. And so that's kind of what got me into this work, which I don't really tell many people about.
Well, mate, it's really fascinating. My story is very similar to that. I had a brother die as well, and when you said it, it hit me right here, mate. So one thing that really struck me out of that too, for your sake, is because I know I went through the same thing, right? You go into a serious grief process, and I'd have to say I was depressed for at least 6 months, not knowing what the hell I wanted to do. What was it that called you to personal development? How did you know that it was the path for you, or that, the first thing that came along was the Michael Rowland you mentioned was the first thing that you did? How did you know? Because there's going to be a lot of people out there who are struggling with what's going on for them right now, and they don't know where to turn, right? So how did you know where to turn at that time?
Yeah, I'm just trying to remember back to it, because and taking me back to that, the days and the weeks and months of really hell, and it's just so my whole world was falling apart. And I can even remember just driving a couple of weeks later, and I saw a billboard, and there was this couple, and they were happy, and I'm like, how dare you be happy? Don't you understand what has happened? And I just felt that there's so much, I suppose I was going through all the stages of grief, one of them being kind of anger. So I was kind of angry at everything and everyone. and because the furthest thing I could think of at that time was happiness, you know. So I saw this guy pop up on the TV, and he was talking about how to live a life of absolute happiness, and I was calling bullshit on at the moment. It's like, how the hell can you be happy, you know, when something so terrible and devastating has happened? So, you know, I kind of went along to just hear what he had to say, and thought, and I'm curious to kind of know about how I could get to a place of happiness, because at that time it felt like, you know, it was like, yeah, it was just never going to happen, and I was never going to be able to move forward. So that's what kind of got me there in the first place. And then when I was there, I started to learn about, you know, the power of the law of attraction, the power of the mind, and about how to really manage and control your emotions. And this whole other world kind of opened up to me, and I thought, wow, this is so powerful. I wish I would have learned this in school. And then so a few more years of going on that journey, picking up pieces of the puzzle from all different places, I had all of these kind of tools, and that's when I thought, these are great tools, but most people don't really find out about them until later on in life. And so that's when I thought, I want to take this and make it fun and exciting and relevant for young people. So that's really my first business and where it all began.
Do you find that a lot of people have a negative experience or a life-changing experience later in life, and that's why they tend to get into it? And you had yours early, so, like, you know the term, the student, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear.
That's right.
And you got it early, right?
Yeah, so I feel fortunate for that. And some people do only discover things later on in life. I think most people, in their 20s and even 30s, they still, you know, think that they got time on their side, and so they go, oh, you know, it'll be right. But when people then, you know, get married, and they might go through a separation, or they might be stuck in a job that they, you know, they hate, or struggling to make ends meet, to pay off the mortgage, and, you know, they look back and they haven't done all the things that they want to do. You know, most people, you know, get to a breaking point, you know, the midlife crisis, as they kind of like say, and then that's what kind of leads them to, you know, finding help and looking for answers through personal development, or for some people it could be you know, a connection with you know, faith or you know, religion of some kind. So yeah, I think being able to have that experience happen to me early on, it just kind of drew me there a whole lot sooner.
So before we move on to the next venture, how important to you was, so a lot of these courses talk about all the upside, right? The positivity and I guess I see you can never be truly fulfilled unless you feel the full spectrum of emotions, right? How important was dealing with the grief and the sadness, the anger, etc., that then allowed you to flip to more of the positive stuff? Or was it a case of all the other things that they might have been teaching you just eventually dissipated the emotional charge around all those things anyway?
Yeah, I think that the you know, the idea about understanding that there is this duality to life, that there are times where you're going to experience awesome happiness and joy and fulfillment and satisfaction. But in order to live that full life, there are going to be challenges as well. And you know, you cannot avoid them completely. So you have to, at some point, develop this set of tools to understand, to deal with these things. And it's almost a case of, and this has been my experience later on, we can talk about the books that I've written and the people that I've interviewed along the way, but I used to think that successful people were successful because they somehow were able to avoid some of the pitfalls and obstacles and challenges that other people experience. Somehow they kind of had a smooth path, or they got lucky. But what I realized is the people that are the most successful are the people that have had to deal with the most amount of stuff and overcome the most amount of challenges. And they've had you know, they might have gone bankrupt at least once, if not twice, or they've had you know, huge problems in their personal life, or all these other issues. So it's almost like part of the course. If you want to achieve success, you're going to have to deal with some major challenges, and so not running from them, but learning how to manage them is, I think, an important part of success in life, and I think it's an important skill for kids and adults. Everyone basically needs to learn about how to become more resilient, how to develop the skills around managing their mental and emotional side of life. You can only look at the stats around mental health right now and see how many people are struggling in this particular area because many just don't have the tools about how to deal with the challenges of life.
So obviously you learnt the tools, you shared the tools with all the young kids.
Yeah.
It must have been incredibly fulfilling and obviously still is.
Yes.
What happens next?
So I started this, this program. It was this weekend workshop that we ran called Empower You, and first time we ran it, it was something special kind of like happened. We just knew that we had done something that was changing people's lives, and that they were telling their friends, and parents would drop their kids off, and their kids would be kicking and screaming, saying, "I don't want to go here. This, I hate you, mum. I hate you, dad." And then after 2.5 days going through our kind of program, they'd at the end run up to their mum and dad, put their arms around them, thank them, show their gratitude and appreciation, and they'd set goals for their life. They'd break through like a board and break through some of their limiting beliefs that they had. So it was just an amazing experience. And so I was kind of like said, I just want to help more people get this. And so we just worked really hard for the next 5 years. We expanded Empower You all throughout Australia and then into New Zealand. And then we took it to Singapore and then Vietnam. We ran a couple of programs in Malaysia, one in Hong Kong and Indonesia. So that was 5 years. Then we ended up expanding into 7 different countries and had at that point tens of thousands of young people through our program, and it was just a lot of fun. And then I wanted to sort of try some other things, and so then I got into books and book publishing and created a series called the Secrets Exposed series. And then I had a couple of other little businesses after that in media and real estate. And then when I was 28, I started the company that I'm probably most known for today, which is Business Blueprint, which is a business education company. And its mission is to help business owners to build the business of their dreams. And we can talk more about all of those things and the steps in between. And it's been a lot of fun.
And just going back to those books, I think that's probably the first time I'd ever heard and met you was when the books were coming out. You must have met some incredible people in that process.
I did, yeah. So how it happened, I was 25 and I was thinking about the advice that I'd give young people. And one of the things that we would always teach them was to, whatever you want to do in life, whatever your goals or dreams are, whatever you want to achieve, there's someone out there that has already done it or is already living that life or achieved what you wanted to achieve. If not exactly, something pretty similar. So we'd always say, why would you go out there and try to do it all yourself through trial and error, making all the same mistakes that have been made by others? Learn from other people that have gone before you. So there's a recipe for success, and you just got to find that recipe, and or model excellence, as we sometimes used to call it. And so we'd give that advice, and some people would act on it, and they'd go interview successful people, and some people would go, how do I find them? What questions do I ask? So I thought, wouldn't it be cool if I could go out there and find all these experts, interview them, and put them together in a book, rather than someone having to spend weeks or months or years finding these answers. If I could just go, here it is, and just give it to them, then that would be an awesome product. And so I came up with this concept called the Secrets Exposed series, and I started interviewing people. And along the way, because I was modeling excellence myself, I had one of my mentors was a guy called Mark Victor Hansen that wrote a series of books called the Chicken Soup for the Soul series. And he said,
it's the world's most popular book at the time,
that's
wasn't
right.
it?
Yeah, I think they sold hundreds of millions of copies now. But I went along to one of his events, and he said, don't think book, think book series. And so I was just going to do one, and I thought, maybe I could do a series. So I thought I'd break it up into different topics. So I came up with one for male entrepreneurs, different to one for female entrepreneurs. Then I did one for property millionaires, then small business owners, and then young achievers. And then later on we did marketing experts and a whole bunch of, we did 15 books in the space of 3 years. So it was a wild kind of like journey, interviewed around 240 people. and took all of their content and put it together in a series of books. And yeah, I was able to meet some amazing people, people that worked at United Nations, and people that had built multi-million-dollar businesses. Lots of people that had done that. Other people as well that, like Father Chris Riley, that created Youth Off the Streets as well. Peter Baines, who founded Hands Across the Water, and there was just so many amazing people that I met through that process, and it was a lot of fun. We sold 250,000, 250,000 books, which was pretty nice. And I oftentimes meet people. They go, "I've got one of your books in my house," and so it's good to know that I've been able to make an impact. And what sort of inspired me to do the books was, before that, as a speaker running programs, you can really only help the people that you're physically in front of, but as an author, you can help people, you know, all over the country, all over the world, and people that you may never meet physically. And so that was a lot of fun and made a big difference.
What I loved about it, Dale, was the leverage side of it in two forms. Is like you're saying, it was a book, not a speaker, where people will have to come to you, so you're location dependent.
Yeah.
Books allow you to be anywhere at any time.
That's right.
But also the business model behind it was brilliant, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So do you want to talk us through that a bit more?
Yeah, so the business model, so it was rather than doing one, it was a series. And because one of the things that I'd learned by that point is you don't normally make money the first time or second time or even probably the fifth time you do something. It's really after the five when you just have the formula down pat, and then you kind of just rinse and repeat. And so that's when I decided that I was going to do this series. And the first few books, they made a little bit of money, but I just reinvested it back into the business. But after that, I had all the systems down pat. We had a system for everything. And so it just made and just to prove that, we did 2 books in the first year, we did 2 books in the second year, and then we did 11 books in the third year. Yeah. So it was kind of like, this exponential growth. Yeah, that really just showed the system was kind of working. And I don't know, it's a record. I don't know if anyone else has ever done 11 books in 1 year.
And they were all bestsellers too, weren't they?
Yeah,
5,000 plus.
Yeah, and we also had an interesting sort of model whereby a lot of the people that were in the books were able to purchase copies at a discounted price for the initial print run. So we sold 10,000 copies of the books before they were even printed, and then they went into bookshops and they're instant bestseller. Exactly.
So I love the model because again, it's all about leverage, isn't it?
Yeah.
Business is about leverage, doing more for less.
Yep.
And you were doing that with the proof being 11 books in the third year.
That's right.
So you were then getting asked by others, because I know they were inspired. I was inspired by the model and what you'd done, and obviously it had skyrocketed you to another level as well as far as awareness goes. Did you then start getting others going, well, can you help me with this?
Yeah, I did. I had lots of people, first of all, as I was doing the book, saying, I've always dreamed about writing a book, and I've been really inspired, by you, and I finally want to make that vision a reality. Can I buy you lunch? Can I get you a cup of coffee? Like, I just want to pick your brains and find out how you did it. And so I started meeting people for coffees, and then I was okay when I was getting 1 call a week, but then it was 2 calls, then it was 3 calls, then it was 4 calls. And so I thought, okay, I'm gonna need to put on an event. So I put on this workshop where I was teaching people how to write and publish books. And then I created like a course to help people, and that did well. And then from there, people were then starting to ask me further questions. Well, now I've done the book, how do I get publicity? And I had gotten quite a lot of publicity for my first company that I had, and we were on television, we did hundreds of radio interviews and all these type of things. And so I thought, yeah, I could teach that. And then also I was an early adopter of like building websites. We built our first website, I think, in 2001. And then later on, a couple of years later, we bolted on e-commerce, and so online ordering, and people going, how did you build a website? And then at the same time as well, 2007, 2008, YouTube was starting to become like a thing, and so people were like, and I had YouTube videos that I was sending people links. They're like, how do you do videos? So then I created this course called so after Get Published Secrets, it was Profile Accelerator. So it was a course that I did, which was a 4-day intensive about how to build your profile and become the expert in your particular field. Yeah. And then I was just getting just straight up entrepreneurs that were coming to my event, and they were kind of asking me questions just like, how do you grow your business? And so it kind of morphed from helping people publish books and then get publicity and market themselves better just can you help me to grow my business? Because, and my angle was really around helping people to make the shift from the old world to the new world. In the past, the way you'd advertise your business was to just put an ad in the yellow pages, or maybe a local newspaper or a radio station. But all of those traditional media outlets were in massive decline. And what was emerging was this new thing called social media. These platforms like Facebook and YouTube and Google AdWords and all these new platforms were basically the future of business. And so I kind of saw that trend, and I had made the shift in my own business and was reaping the rewards of that. And a lot of people started to ask me, how are you doing all this stuff? And so that's when I started Business Blueprint in November 2009. And we've been doing that for over 10 years now, and it's been amazing. And even though I've loved working with young people, in 2008, I handed the reins over to the guy I started with, my business partner. So he's kept running it ever since. And so it's awesome to look at my phone, and every other weekend I see photos of the event that I sort of like started all those years ago, which is great. But yeah, now my real focus is helping business owners and entrepreneurs, because what I love about the work that I do now is that when you help one business owner, you're not just helping one person, you're immediately helping their entire family. But each business owner probably has, between the number of staff, suppliers, contractors, and customers that they do business with, they're probably impacting a couple of hundred people. So when you help one business owner become successful, you're really having this compounding effect, because you're helping hundreds, if not thousands of people indirectly. So that's really what I'm really excited about now, is helping more business owners across Australia and New Zealand. And we've also built some technology products as well that is now helping entrepreneurs globally.
Yeah, so just amazing timing too for you, I guess, in the cycle of life with the internet and the way all the amazing platforms were coming on board at the time you started. But before we get to the other, Bizversity and everything else that you're doing, what was your process? Was it purely a case of looking at what people are wanting? So obviously for the entrepreneurs out there, you can either create something and hope someone wants it, or you look at what's happening and create something for it. What was your process at that time? Was it, or did you just make it up as you went?
Yeah, it was sort of like a little bit of a perfect storm, just those things kind of like, emerging. I had, grown up in a family business. I'd started my first business when I was 19. I had kind of like almost 10 years of business experience by that point. And so I was passionate about business. And so I think that really helps. You've got to be passionate about what you do, no matter what the opportunity is or whatever. I think if you're just a pure opportunist, it'll only take you so far. I think you really got to love...
hemp oil spruiker?
Yeah, that's right. You really got to love what you do. And then the next thing was what was happening in the marketplace at that particular time. There was definitely this changing of the guard type moment from the old world to the new world. And the lucky thing for me was I was born in 1981, so I was the first generation that grew up with computers in their home and computers in their classroom. And so, and I was on the internet, when it kind of came out, and got my first, email address a few months later and those type of things. And I'd, so it just made sense to me. Not that I'm super technical or anything like that, but I just, knew how to kind of make things work and put things together. Yeah. But most people that grew up later, I didn't realize this, but they really struggled with regards to technology, and so they had to kind of learn it. And so people that were in their 40s, 50s, and 60s were needing that, realized they had to change, but they were stuck between these worlds of they were sort of too young to retire, but too old to go back to school, and they had to rapidly modernize, and they had to upskill very, very quickly and learn about digital marketing and how to make their business relevant in today's marketplace. And the people that they used to go to for advice was their accountant, who's like even more primitive and backward than what they are, or their lawyer, which is probably even worse. And so they realized that they needed to seek out, in this case, younger people to kind of help them to make the shift. And I like to think that I'm very respectful type of person, and and was able to help them to make that shift. in a really fun and empowering way. I didn't want to make them feel like, they said sometimes when I talk to young people, they make me feel like an idiot. And so I wanted to make sure that I never did that. And I was always doing it in such a way of being really supportive and encourage them, motivate them, and give them support and just say, hang in there, you can do it. And, just got to do things step by step. And I was able to break it down and create training videos and resources. So that really made it much easier in order for people to make the shift.
Going back to leverage, we talk about with the books was a leverageable process.
Yeah.
So Business Blueprint begins.
Yes.
And it becomes an event-based business first. Is that how it started?
Yeah. So it started again, back to this idea about leverage. It's like if I'm going to do something I can't just work for one person or even 10 people. It's got to work for hundreds and one day thousands of people. And so events is a great way to create leverage because it's not a one-to-one model, it's a one-to-many model. And so I started to run these workshops, and I'd oftentimes have to start with 20 to 30 people in a room teaching them how to do something. So whether it's how to use YouTube to market your business, or I could be teaching them around how to set up a CRM system and set up an email marketing campaign, for example, or how to set up Google Sites and start documenting their policies and procedures in a collaborative way using using modern technology. So I would get them in a room and I'd teach them, break it down, teach them step by step. And so now we have more than 500 entrepreneurs that we work with that go through our program every single year. But it was all about, part of my mission is how do I help as many people as possible to build the business of their dreams. And so for me, it's about quality, but it's also about quantity as well. I want to help more people and I want to have a great program. And so that's kind of been my two focuses is developing something that can scale so I can have that bigger impact on people.
So talking of the leverage and scale part again, so you've got a model where it's a free workshop, a one-day workshop to start with, that flows into an annual coaching program or a year-long coaching program.
Correct, yeah.
And was there any question at any point whether you just wanted to do webinars instead of actually in person, and why do you prefer the in-person side of, especially I guess for the one-day workshops?
Yeah, so I did experiment with doing webinars to sell the program, but I found that I did much better from a live event than webinars. I do webinars mainly for servicing clients and as part of my delivery, but I just find that something magic happens when you have people in a room. It's the difference between buying a gym membership and hiring a personal trainer. If you just buy a gym membership, it doesn't make you fit. You're just good luck. There's the tools, but then you got to figure out how to use them. What program do you follow? Some people work out for years and don't get any real dramatic results and changes because they really don't know what they're doing. And so hiring a personal trainer is a completely different experience. It's like someone knows what they're doing, they've got results themselves, they've got a track record, you're gonna show up at a certain time, and they're gonna make sure that you work out and follow the program. And so I found that that's really more of my style, is helping people to implement. And so by being in that live event, it's like, okay, open up your computer. Now type in this into your browser. Now click over here. Now set this up. Now do this and do that. And at the end of it, and it's a bit intense when you're in it, but at the end it's like, oh my gosh, I did this. And it could have taken them weeks or months on their own, but in 4 or 5 hours, they've been able to do something that they thought was impossible, just because they've had someone there, holding their hand and helping them to follow through.
It's massive inertia, isn't there, for a lot of people if they don't know how it works beforehand. So obviously that just nullifies that, and you're doing it with them, and it's evolved, hasn't it? So was initially yourself and Catherine, your wife, who started the process?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So Catherine, my wife, was very much involved, in the creation of Business Blueprint. But along the way, we've had 2 kids, and so she's taken more of a behind-the-scenes type of a role. So she looks after all the finance and insurances, and now we have a number of investments as well. So she manages all of those. But yeah, it's been really fun to create this program that's helped thousands of entrepreneurs and business owners. But the other thing that I'm really passionate about as well, and part of what we can perhaps maybe talk about next is about, it's not just about the business, it's really about the business for me is a vehicle for you to create the life of your dreams.
Exactly.
And so I help people with their business, but what I really care about is people creating a business so that they can then do the things that they really want to do in their life. And for some people it could be travel, or for other people it could be spending more time with their kids, or some people it might be spending more time volunteering at church or supporting a charity that they love as well. Or many people now have bucket lists, and it's just about working through their bucket lists and doing things that inspire others. And so one of the things that I've started to do is make sure I practice what I preach. And for me, I love travel, and so we can talk a bit more about what we've done as a family to make sure that we try and have that balance and live our life on the way through. And hopefully now I've inspired others to do the same.
Well, it's fantastic. And so you've built a business that's a vehicle for you to live your dreams, which is helping others live their dreams by default, because that's what your business is about, helping others. So your family, 2010 was it, first child arrived?
So 2007 was the first, 2010 was the second.
Second?
Yeah.
And did you guys sit down, because I know travel is a massive part of who you are, did you sit down and design how you wanted it to be at that point, or did you just go, hey, we're going to go traveling, or what? Because you now travel 4 months of the year, is that?
Yeah, that's right. We do 2 months on, 2 months in Australia, and then 1 month traveling the world, 2 months in Australia, 1 month travel. So we've been doing that for now the last 12 years, ever since our son was born. And there was a number of things that sort of inspired it. There was probably two that the standouts that I'm happy to share. One of them was a book that I read called The 4-Hour Week by Tim Ferriss, and he was talking about what most people do is they work the 40-40-40 plan, which is they work 40 hours a week for 40 years of their life, and they end up retiring and on 40% of their income. And so saying rather than spending your whole next 40 years, 50 years working, why don't you take these, and then retiring, why don't you take these little mini retirements all throughout your working life? And if you have a good business and you put in good systems, you can leverage yourself out of the day-to-day so that business can run without you having to be there every single day. And you can come back, obviously, and continue to work on the business. And especially now, thanks to technology that now exists, and dashboards that we can have, and cloud-based accounting, and all the modern CRMs that are just so fantastic. You can, in many cases, run your business from anywhere in the world, which I now do. Maybe not some people completely can, and other people like me would, because I still run events, but I just schedule all my events. So I pack all of my work into 2 months, and then I can disappear for a month, and the team kind of does the management. So that book was definitely something that goes, oh, okay, and maybe I don't have to wait for, till I'm 60 to do this stuff. Maybe I could do it along the way. And then I had so many friends of mine, when we gave birth to our son, so many people came up and said, you see that tiny little baby that you got there that's about this big? You're going to blink and it's going to be, where's the keys to the car? And that's it, your parent journey is over. So it's savor every single moment. And so I thought to myself, I could just spend the next 15, 20 years of my life working, and then have made all this money, and then go, okay, but now my kids are kind of gone, and I've got no one to sort of share it with. And so I thought, why don't I actually maybe go a little bit slower, but understanding the fact that there's a lot of most people now, hopefully with modern technology, will be living to at least 90, if not 100, maybe even 110 or 20. And so just go a little bit slower and live your life on the way through as well, rather than waiting for one day, someday I'll do all the stuff I wanted to do. Who knows? The opposite could happen as well. And there's many people that have left this planet far too soon, as we both kind of know. And so therefore, how about...
You only live once, don't you?
Exactly. So don't kind of wait to someday. Make it, let's do it, and let's do it now. So that's really what we do. We do 2 months, 1 month travel, and then when we do the month travel, we've been now to 85 countries around the world, and I could list hundreds of different special things that we've done, and it's just been a lot of fun. Now what I try to do is inspire people through what I've achieved, and it's not, I don't say it to boast or brag or anything like that, but it's just saying, if you're working for your business, that's a problem. Like, your business should be working for you. And how do we flip that equation so your business can give you and create for you the life that you want? Let's spend 12 months. Let's figure out how to do that for you. And so you can then have your business run and fuel your lifestyle and fuel your dreams. And then you can inspire others as well.
And so did you sit down with Catherine early on in that process when the kids were arriving and plan it out that we're going to do this 1 month, 2 months on 1 month, and then have to forecast it into the future? Or how does the planning process
So every
work?
year in October, we plan out the next 12 months. So we plan out things 12 months in advance. I schedule all of my events that I run 12 months in advance, book all of our venues, all that type of stuff. But then we put in all of our holidays. So we know exactly when we're going to be taking our trips. Now we have to work around school holidays and stuff like that. But before, we could just put them in wherever we wanted to. And so we have this huge long list of different places we want to do. A lot we've ticked off now, which is great. Like, we wanted to go to Antarctica. You know, we wanted to spend a month living in New York. We wanted to go up to along the fjords in Norway as well. We've wanted to go top to bottom of Egypt. So we have this list of things that we want to do. And so we just kind of at the beginning of the year go, okay, what are the 4 things we're going to do? And we go tick, 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 tick. And then we just, in most cases, book them. So
make it happen.
Gets the flights, gets the accommodation sort of done. And once it's kind of locked in, the good thing about that is it's just like, it's in the diary. I can work really hard knowing that, just when I'm kind of like, feeling exhausted, there'll be a break coming. And the funny thing is that sometimes what I've found anyway, some of the best ideas that I've ever had was when I've been out of my business and I've just seen things from a different perspective. And so it's not actually, I think it's actually good for the business to step out away from it, because it makes the business work without the owner having to be there every single day. Staff have to step up. You need to become a better leader as well. And also just really, you get to see where the kind of the break points are within the business. And so when you come back, it's like, okay, I need to fix this, I need to fix this, I need to fix that. And it ultimately makes the business a lot stronger and one day more saleable as well.
You've got is it the systems that run the business, or is it the quality staff that run the good systems? Obviously to be able to go away and do what you do, you've got something good in place there, haven't you?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, the foundation, it's about systems, but it's also about people and team that run the systems as well. It's about technology. If you haven't invested in the right technology, it's very hard to manage and maintain. And then it's also about leadership, your leadership as a manager, and also the leadership of the team that you have in place as well. And then to a certain extent, it's also about trust as well, and learning to let go. And that's sometimes the hardest thing, is that you want to control everything, especially if you built something from the ground up. You suffer from this syndrome of the no one can do it as good as what I can syndrome. And so at some point, you're going to need to really let go and put your faith in others to run the day-to-day.
Yeah. And so you, with your holiday side of things, you've got a bucket list that you're ticking off, or you just come up with it as you go? As like through traveling, you'll come up with other ideas to go for next time, or how does it work?
Yeah, so I've got a big list. I wrote it down when I was, I think I was at a goal setting workshop when I was 18, and I was asked to challenged to write 100 things that I wanted to do in my life. Yeah. And it's interesting, I've kind of looked back on that list. I've probably done about 50% of those things now. Yeah. But then there are other things that I just realized were just things that, I was going to own like a winery. And I was like, no, I'm happy to drink wine, but I probably don't want to be picking the grapes and doing all that type of stuff. So there's a few things where, my priorities have changed. Yeah. But there's always new things that emerge as well. So sometimes I'll see something that someone does and go, wow, that's awesome. I want to add that to my list. Or I might be flicking through, a magazine or watching something on the TV, or read a book that inspires me. It kind of expands. But every year I try to make sure that, if at least, 4 or 5 things I'm sort of like ticking off. And at this stage as well, there's some stuff, I am doing a lot of things that I want to do, But at this point in my life, and same for my wife as well, kids are kind of like, our number one priority. And so it's not just about what we want to do, because we've got plenty of time when they leave that, we'll have another 30, 40 years to do all the other stuff we want to do. It's about giving them experiences as well. So helping them to go to different places, whether that be taking them to Egypt, or to see the pyramids, or to London to see the Churchill war rooms, or to go to Normandy and see the battlefronts. We've taken them to Gallipoli as well. We've taken them to Hiroshima and Nagasaki in Japan, and we've taken them to Singapore and lots of different places where we're just showing them this is the life that we have. Is very privileged, and just back 50 years ago, the world was very, very different. And even we went to this place in the UK, the tips, Cornwall, and when they had these tin mines, and so kids as young as 9 and 10 were working in mines, faces full of just dust, and some of them would die in their late teens because of the poison from working in the mines at a very young age. And I was thinking, if you guys were born 100 years ago, this would have been your life. And just them to be able to have that appreciation and to learn about currencies and cultures. And we've spent a lot of time in the Middle East as well. And so I think it's great for kids to be able to not break down any prejudice and realize the fact that we're one big global family.
I'm just thinking, when you started out, you wanted to recreate the education system.
Yeah.
And you've done that, or you're helping that process with entrepreneurs,
yeah.
but also with your kids, right?
Yeah.
It's like the impact on them to actually go to these places, which most people read about in books. They're going to see it for real. What have you noticed? Have you noticed they've become, I don't even know what the word is, more intelligent or more global or worldly, or in their ability to learn by doing that? Or
definitely, yeah. So everywhere we go, we do tours at different places, and it's just all going in, and it's just amazing that kids will start making connections and say, oh, this is like this, or they might see something and they might go, oh, there's hieroglyphs. They just see it and they just kind of know what it is.
Yeah.
So they're starting to develop more and more of those connections, and they're now starting to get interested in history. And thankfully now there's so many amazing YouTube channels, and so the kids are just going in, devouring all these videos and learning about history. And I think that history is such a good thing to study, because there's so many of mistakes that people are making today, that same mistakes that people made before that. And so I think that if you have a good understanding of history, you make better decisions, in the present, and you can see the future. Someone actually said that a futurist is just a historian in reverse, because once you see several patterns, then you know what's going to happen next. But the other thing that's been important for us as well is really around understanding different cultures, different religions, different ways of operating. The life that we have here is just, it's just one, it's just one model, and there's lots of different models that are out there, and just to help them to develop appreciation of wherever they go, be respectful, and to do what you can to make things better.
So Dale, kids are obviously really important to you, but you also have another association with kids in another form, don't you?
Yes, I do, yeah. So that's through our association with a charity called Hands Across the Water. It's a charity that was started in 2005, shortly after the Boxing Day tsunami of 2004. It was the largest natural disaster in modern history. 250,000 people lost their life in a single day. And there were thousands and thousands of children that were instantly left as orphans. And so a man called Peter Baines, who was part of the Australian Federal Police, was sent there. He was a forensic scientist, and his job was to do victim identification. And so when he arrived, there were 3,000 dead bodies that were in this little place in Khao Lak in Thailand. And he saw these children kind of, walking around that had lost their parents, and so decided that he was going to do something. And so there was this beautiful lady that had started to take in some kids, and she just set up a tent, and these kids were living with her in this tent. And he said, this isn't right. Came back to Australia, started raising money, and was able to build them a home. And then as he started to spend more time in Thailand, he saw that there were so many other children that were really struggling there. Another was as a home that was a HIV home for kids, and just realized the fact that we live in an amazing country here in Australia, and we're so blessed, and there are so many other places in the world that just that really need our help. I think there's that saying, to whoever much is given, much is asked. And as entrepreneurs, I think we have this awesome opportunity to make a lot of money from our business, far more than we kind of need ourselves. And so the right thing to do is to go, okay, how do I help give others a leg up? How do I give back? So we got to a point in 2012, my wife and I, where we kind of like, okay, bills are all being paid. We've got some good money in the bank. We've got investment properties. Like, we're going to be fine, and so our kids are going to be fine. But now we want to actually start doing something more. We want our business to move beyond just a money-making business, and so we wanted to link it to a cause that we were passionate about. In 2007, I interviewed Peter Baines in one of my books, and so that's when the thought occurred. I said to my wife, well, how about we call up Peter? He's running this amazing charity, and see if we can help and support him. And so around the same time, he was opening another home. They now have 7 homes, and he was looking for some extra funding, and we said, okay, we want to help. And so we did an event where we got together some people from our business community, and we did a bike ride in Thailand. I think the first year we raised about $180,000, which was pretty good, and we've kept raising money for the last nearly 7 years now. We've raised about $2 million for Hands Across the Water, and that makes a massive difference in impacting hundreds of children now that we support through giving them a safe place to live, and giving them proper medical care, education as well, but most importantly, a loving home. So that's been our kind of cause of choice. I think that there's a lot of causes out there, and people will have their own different opinions on what they feel connected to, whether that be people, whether that be in the environment, whether that be animals. Just find something that you're passionate about, find a cause that you believe in, and just link it up to what you're doing. So that's what I try to do now, is help all the entrepreneurs that I work with, is say, your business has to work for you and your family, but then it's going to work for the global family as well. And so find a cause that you're passionate about, you link arms with it, and just use some of the money that you make from your business and link it up to an organization that you're part of. There is one that if you find it hard to choose just one cause, there's an amazing organization called B1G1, started by a lovely lady called Masami and also Paul Dunn, and you can check out B1G1, and they actually enable you to link different aspects of running your business to certain causes, and I think they've got now maybe close to 1,000 different charity organizations that link into their platform. And so what you can do is spread your giving around to different organizations that you feel connected to. So some companies, we've kind of had one main focus for the last 7 years, and that kind of works for us, because now we have there's people that are relying on us, and so we've got like recurring expenses, and so that's the path that we've chosen. But other people choose to maybe have every month they have a different cause, and they get their staff kind of behind it, and they link it up to different things. So, yeah. But having a cause that you're passionate about, I think, is really important.
How does it feel to you and to Catherine that you can make that difference through your business? And then obviously, because you take your entrepreneurs with you, don't you, on those trips every year?
Totally.
But they then get to make that difference as well. How does that feel?
Look, it feels amazing from the perspective of the reactions of the other entrepreneurs. I think deep down, all of us do want to, we want to make an impact. We want to leave a mark. We want to help people. That's really what is, the surface level, we want to kind of make money and we want to kind of like do all that type of stuff. But really, beyond all of that, we really just want to do something that helps people. There's no greater joy than just making a difference in someone else's lives. In fact, I get more joy out of seeing other people's success than sometimes when I do my own success. And so many people that have partnered with us and we've taken to Thailand and we have visited the projects have said things like, I've always wanted to do something, but I just haven't known what. And I thought that my little contribution wasn't going to make much of an impact. But by joining forces with 50, 60 other entrepreneurs, then we can do something that none of us could achieve, on our own. And there's a few buildings now that we've funded, we wouldn't be able to do that individually, but as a collective community of entrepreneurs, we can do amazing things. And so now some of the entrepreneurs that we work with have sponsored children there, and have gone there, even in some of their break time, have gone there to donate their time and to look after the kids and to do gardening and to do building projects and things like that as well. So it's really good to help people to develop this, I call it like, the third dimension to their business. If it's kind of like, business is just about, you and your family, this is great. But if you have something else, a cause and a mission that you're really passionate about, it just gives your business like an X factor. And your customers kind of see that you're beyond just a profit-making business. Your staff can get involved in that as well. So it has a lot of doing good. Does a lot of good, in your business as well, and I think it makes you even more powerful as an entrepreneur and as a business.
Do you find, like they talk about, there's a spiritual concept where if you give to receive, you never receive. Mm-hmm. But if you give, where you think you'll receive will actually never come back from where you thought it would come from. It comes from somewhere else. Do you find the more you give, the more magic happens elsewhere for you in relation to personal and business and or your entrepreneurs as well?
Yeah, I didn't really think about it from a business growth point of view. I just thought about it as just the right thing to do at the beginning. And so we just did this, and some of the money that we've donated, we haven't even told anyone that we do it. We just thought it's the right thing to do. But you're right, there's all these other indirect benefits that kind of like happen as a result of it. People that we've met, people that have been attracted to us, different staff that have stayed with us, for longer periods of time, because of the connection that we have to the cause. So it definitely does come back to you. It's not the main reason why you do it, but it's certainly good to know that that other people see the impact that you're doing and are inspired by it. That's the biggest thing that I think I love, is that a lot of people said to me, I used to think, as did I, that when I'm successful, when I've got millions of dollars in the bank, then I'll start giving money away. But actually, no, you can actually give away. It's not about the amount of money. It's just about the mental habit and discipline about having money sort of like flow through you. You make it, you save some, spend some, and then you give some. And when you have that philosophy of money as a flow, you end up more money actually comes to you anyway, as a result.
Yeah. So the giving is the receiving, really, isn't it?
And you don't have to do it, sometime down the track. Start now, and just do a little, even if it's kind of like $100 a month. Yeah. Just start with something, and then you can set a goal to go, okay, what do I need to do to make it $200 a month, and then $500 a month, then $1,000 a month, and then you can just grow and expand from there. But just start small and work your way up.
And it doesn't have to be money either, does it? Like creativity, you
course.
can offer services or skills or
Services,
connections.
yeah, skills. You could do volunteering. You could get your staff to do volunteering. Some companies even allow their staff to take maybe 5 days a year where the staff actually volunteer, and the company obviously, pays their salary during that period of time. But if you maybe pick, downtime in the business or areas whereby it's not all hands on deck, then that's another way that as a business you can be, giving that that involves the other currency, which is time.
Yeah. So you mentioned earlier that technology is really important to you. You have also an AI business, an artificial
Yeah.
intelligence business. It's
Yeah.
a diversification of Business Blueprint. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so I've always been passionate about helping as many people as possible to build the business of their dreams, and we do that through live events. And I love live events because of what we spoke about before, about making sure that people do the work. But the problem with live events is you only can help the people that you're physically in front of. And so I've traveled all around the world, and there are same business challenges kind of like everywhere, and a lot of them don't have access to, here in Australia and even in America, there's like events on every weekend. You just go into a meetup group, and if you want to grow your business, there's no shortage of people out there sharing advice. But in many developing countries, business education or business events are not common. And so I thought, wouldn't it be cool to create a product that could help entrepreneurs globally? And I became fascinated with the trend of artificial intelligence and what the promise of what it could do. And I thought to myself, wouldn't it be cool if I could build a business coach using artificial intelligence that could coach people at scale. It could work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and help millions of people simultaneously. So that's been an amazing journey. Learned so much through that, and now we've created this huge library of content to go with the technology piece, and we've got a library of nearly 2,000 business education videos. Wow. And it's been an amazing experience. So that's now wrapped up in a platform we call Bizversity. So Business Blueprint is for what I do with me personally in Australia and New Zealand through primarily live events, but Bizversity is a platform where I'm not the face, and its purpose is to help people at a global scale.
And speaking of you being the face, I know we've talked about this in the past, is at some point in any business, you want to leverage yourself out of the business.
Yeah.
So is Bizversity part of that, or is there other things that you're doing that are also enhancing that process?
Yeah, so it's a bit of an experiment to develop. Like I love learning and I love technology, and so and I wanted to build something that didn't have me at the center. So that's been an amazing experience. But I do think when you're in the early days of business, you've got to be very, very focused and say no to a lot of opportunities. But having a business that is so personality driven, it is a risk that if something ever happens to me, how do I make sure that my work continues, without me? And so that's where Bizversity kind of comes in. I'm also now training up other people to present some of my workshops. Where now I've got a lot of what we do recorded and filmed as well. But I've also now started to, from a financial point of view, I've started to diversify by investing in other businesses as well. So there's now 6 other companies that I am a major investor in. And that's
similar type of businesses?
Actually, some are in the education space, but a lot are not in the education space at all, which is exciting. And some completely different from what I do. But what's been great about that is I've realized just how that business at the end of the day is like a universal language. Once you understand the core principles, you can apply it to any business. It doesn't matter really what it is. And a lot of the stuff, the systems around hiring staff and all those type of things are very, very similar. And it's been really fun for me actually to go back into the trenches and to be back in these businesses in the early stages and to be creating stuff again. So it's beyond just a financial thing for me. It's more about unleashing my creativity because on my business, it's been around for 10 years. I can't redesign my brand because it's already done.
You can't play with it too much.
Can't play with it too much. The formula kind of works, and I don't want to kind of mess with it too much. But I'm really loving using my skills now to help other entrepreneurs. So I'm kind of like behind the scenes, and the other entrepreneurs are driving the day-to-day. But I can kind of, in most cases, provide as much value in an hour of my time and input as what they could in a 40-hour week. And it's not saying that I'm better than them in any way. It's just that I've got a lot of skills and experience, and sometimes just 3 or 4 really good ideas can bring hundreds of thousands of dollars in revenue into the business. And I'm also in the fortunate position now where I'm very well connected, and so once I invest in a business, I can start making all these connections, and again, that turns into significant value to the business as well. And so for me, it's not just about my time, it's also about my contacts as well that I've built up over the last 20 years, which are extremely valuable. So it's been fun. I've really, really enjoyed that process now of I still love the business that I run, Business Blueprint, but I've loved diversifying and becoming an investor and a mentor at a hands-on sort of level. Even though I mentor 500 people, I can't really get inside any of those businesses specifically. It's because it's a one-to-many model. So I've loved building this portfolio of businesses that I invest in, but also now I've invested in property as well. And it's just fun. For me, it's really about learning new skills. So we're doing a property development right now.
Nice.
It's our first kind of major project. And I've just been last night looking at some of the plans that were sent from the architect, and now we're choosing building materials, and I'm going online and I'm looking at color swatches and paint and stuff, and why we're going to use bricks and what all that stuff. So it's actually really fun for me to have some interests outside of what I do day to day.
Fantastic. So you talk about the formula, the magic formula, or the formula, mentioned with Business Blueprint as a working formula. And you talk about core business principles. And obviously we've shared a heap of them today with the entrepreneurs and outliers that are out there. But if someone is starting out on their journey, specific to them, are they looking at their market? Are they looking at what they want to do? Are they looking at a combination of the two to create something for the market? What's the starting process? Obviously, other than coming to see Business Blueprint and 52 ways, what would you recommend to the outliers out there who are wanting to start?
Yeah, I'd recommend that they, first of all, a lot of people start with a product idea, and I think that's the wrong way to go. A lot of people build a product and then try to find a market for that particular product, but the worst mistake you can ever make in business, and I've made it a couple of times actually, is build something that no one ever wanted or no one ever asked for. Just because you thought it was a great idea doesn't mean that enough other people, you might have 5 or 10 of your family and friends go, that's a great idea, but when you put it out there to the market, and to strangers, people that don't know you, they go, no, that's not a great idea. So I always recommend...
The market will always give the feedback.
That's right, that's right. And you want to get that feedback before you've built the product, as opposed to some people have spent years, and thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars on developing something that just was fundamentally flawed from the beginning. So I would suggest that people find a market that they want to serve. For me, it's with small business owners. And then what you got to do is find out a problem that this market has that you could potentially solve. So, or you could pick any market. Maybe it's going to be kind of like new mums, for example, or you might want to pick people that love golf. And so spend time in talking to those people, go onto forums, look at products that are selling on Amazon, read the comments in the or the reviews, go along to to live events and workshops and things like that, but just talk to people, interview at least 20, if not maybe even up to 50 people, and you'll soon start to see what are the common problems coming up over and over again. And then you can find a solution to those problems. That's really the best entrepreneurs, are just the best problem solvers, and find a meaningful problem that you can then solve. Sometimes you solve it through a product that you might be able to make, or you can actually buy and then buy low, sell high. So you could import those products from different places, or it could be a service that you create as well, that you then be able to systemize and then scale, so you can ultimately help more people. But definitely find a market that you're passionate about, find a meaningful problem, and then solve the problem, and then do it in such a way that you can scale it and go big.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned passion again. It's not a case of just creating something for creating's sake, and it's not a case of just being an opportunist. How important is that passion? Obviously we've talked about it with your journey, it's been immense, but for everyone else that's out there.
Exactly, and I remember hearing someone say, his name's Brad Sugars, he said anyone can get rich quick in business as long as your definition of quick is 10 years. And you look at any really successful entrepreneurs, it's normally they've built their amazing business over a 10-year period. And so what you got to realize is if you're just an opportunist and you're just going into doing something just for money, you're not going to sustain yourself. You're not going to be there long enough. I loved working with young people. I was passionate about it. I loved working with entrepreneurs and business owners. So it's easy for me to work with those people, and
it would feel effortless for you, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and you're able to sustain yourself for a longer period of time. But if I all of a sudden said, I want to pick fishermen because I've found this really great kind of new rod, and I'm just like, I'm not passionate about that, and so I'm not going to stick out long enough to actually get the result. It might last 6 months, maybe a year, but then after that, it's gonna fall in a heap. So find a market, people that you love to serve, and love hanging around, and you just love serving those people, and then find a problem that they have and then go solve it.
Yeah. And what are the biggest things you've learnt from your, I don't know what to call them, clients or community, it's probably a better way to put it, of entrepreneurs? So obviously you're teaching them a lot of things.
Yeah.
But what are they teaching you?
They're teaching me a lot of stuff, and that's one of the things that is so amazing about my business now. I've got like 500 clients that I have helped, but they're also out there doing amazing things like in their business, and then they tell me what they're doing, and then I say, you've got to teach it to the community. And so now a lot of my speakers are actually made up of my students that are doing amazing things. Like, for example, one of them was a girl who started a Facebook group, and now she's got something like 67,000 people in her Facebook group in the last 10 months. I just spoke to her, she sent me a message last night, and she said just this last week we've had 5,400 people join her Facebook group in the last week. And so I was like, wow, that is amazing. Can you teach it? And so a few weeks ago, she came to one of my events and she actually taught, this is what I did, this is why I did this, and I did this, and I did this. And so there's another guy that, or two guys that run a craft beer business, and they did this campaign where they did Australia's first craft beer survey, and they got 14,000 new people in their database within 30 days through creating this campaign. And so it's so great now to just be, I feel like I'm able to find all of these great entrepreneurs that are doing all these things, and then I've got this platform or this community to be able to share that knowledge amongst all of the other members.
Well, I guess that's the power of the mastermind too, isn't it? When they must get in that room with the courses and then the weekend programs and that, the energy must be sensational.
Oh, it is. It's just like, I love, that's talking about passion. Like, I just love being around entrepreneurs. I just love the resourcefulness of entrepreneurs. I love the down to earth kind of like attitude, the give it a go, give it a crack type spirit. And so it's just effortless when I'm kind of at the events. I just love hanging out with people.
Yeah.
And they just thrive off each other's success. and that we follow this philosophy of like all ships rise in a high tide. You know, out there in the real world, you got the tall poppy syndrome. You know, when you do something, everyone wants to cut you down. But at our events, you know, we create this amazing kind of culture about, you know, it's actually great to share what's working for you, share your wins, share your success, and share your failures as well. So we don't all talk about, you know, it's not all sunshine and roses all the time. There are tough challenges, and we should talk about those as well. But when you share the good stuff that's happening, you inspire others to do more good as well, and that creates more success, which then comes back to you, and everyone helps everybody else. So it's really great to be able to have provided a community for those, for people to share their success and to learn from others.
And speaking of learning from others, obviously there are a lot of business owners and entrepreneurs out there struggling at times too. What advice would you have for them when things are not going so well?
Yeah, I think that there's that saying, you know, you can't solve your current problems with the same mind that created them. And so rarely when you're experiencing problems and something's going wrong in your business, you got to get out of, you know, your own head, and you got to get some outside perspective. You know, be around other entrepreneurs. That isolation, I think, is the biggest kind of like killer of businesses. You need to be plugged in somewhere where you're around a community, whether it be a mastermind where you maybe, and I'm part of a mastermind, and for the last, I think 13 years we've been meeting every 6 weeks. You know, there's a handful of entrepreneurs, and we get together, we talk about our wins, we talk about our war stories, we talk about the problems that we're having in our business as well. So that's been awesome. And then I've obviously got a big community of entrepreneurs now, but get out there and surround yourself with like-minded people that can, you know, build you up and help you and give you that perspective that you need as well. Sometimes it's like, you know, it's just going to be some support and encouragement. Other times it could be like a bit of a, you know, some tough love, just like, you know, suck it up, princess, and just get back out there. You know, sometimes we, so they go, oh, you know, I hired a virtual assistant that didn't work out. It's like, and hire another one, next. You know, next. So sometimes it's just about, you know, getting someone that's just going to tell you to, you know, stop whinging and complaining and get on with it.
Problem shared is a problem halved, isn't it?
Exactly, yeah.
Dale, did you ever think that maybe when you were 17, your brother was 15, you know, the tragedy that occurred at that time and what you've been through now would have somehow been related?
Yeah, I do think that that experience, while very tragic, and if I could go back, you know, in a heartbeat, I would change it. But knowing that that's not possible, I am grateful for what has happened as a result of that experience. And that led me to personal development, and that led me to then immersing myself with all these incredible people that I learned from. I don't ever think that I'm great, just I had great teachers and people that invested in me, and then from there I was able to go on the journey of helping young people as well, and now helping entrepreneurs and business owners. So it definitely was a defining moment, you know, in my life, I was able to try and have that as not being my excuse, but rather, you know, my fuel to be able to help me to achieve, you know, my path in life.
Mm-hmm. And when you see that billboard, two happy people when you're not in a great space, is happiness possible when you're in a state of adversity? Yeah,
like, you know, now we'll have a lot of, you know, happy moments in my life now, and my brother would want me to experience, you know, all of the wonderful things of life and still be happy. He wouldn't want me to stay in that dark place for forever. And so therefore, and especially now when you got kids, you know, you can't help but smile at all the crazy things that they do. So it really has helped me to become the person that I was born to be.
20 years from now, Dale, where will you be?
Wow. Well, I still hope I'm making an impact, and I think it'll still be working with entrepreneurs. Still, what I'm passionate about. I hope that my youth program is still running, because I still love. I think that, you know, young people, of course, are our future, and I want to be able to you know, continue to be to be using my life as inspiration to others. And I think part of it is about living your life to the fullest, so you can be an example to others as well, which is what I hope to be doing. And then probably either potentially maybe a career in politics or maybe doing more work in the charity sector. You look at work like the Bill Gates and what he's done with, in countries in Africa and with vaccinations and things like that, and the Gates Foundation being responsible for saving the lives of millions and millions of people. So I'd love to be in a position where I could just do more good.
Sensational, mate. Well, you've certainly inspired me to be a better person, a better businessman, and I really appreciate you coming on Outlier.
Thanks, Andrew.
Thanks, mate.
Thanks.
Well, there it is. I hope you enjoyed this inspiring Outlier episode with Dale Beaumont. For more videos, resources and information, visit outlier.tv or connect with us on our social media pages below. I'm Andrew McComb, and here's to living the outlier life outside of the comfort zone. I'll see you soon.